Abhishek, who is also a PhD student from Sanjay. And he's been working on an unconventional application for Charm++, let's say, an unconventional domain rather. So he's been looking at how to get Charm++ applications running efficiently in the cloud. And that is what he will be talking to us about today.
Hi, my name is Abhishek, and better now. Yeah. So today's talk, it's quite different from what we have listened so far about high-end HPC and so on. So what I have been working about is high-performance computing in cloud, which is quite an unconventional topic, as Pritish said. And so this talk is about improving HPC application performance in cloud through dynamic load balancing capabilities of Charm++ and especially extending those capabilities to make it aware to cloud. And I've been working with HP Labs for this collaboration. So the motivation for why do we consider cloud for HPC is similar to why cloud computing is getting traction in other fields. So the argument is if you are unlike most of the people in this group who have the privilege of access to, say, large-scale supercomputers and so on. If you are a small or medium-scale HPC user or a startup who wants to run their application, but they don't have any access to supercomputer or cluster, so the option they have is either to create their own cluster, which can take significant amount of capital expenditure and operating expenditure, and also the time to create that cluster, or they can go to cloud and rent. So the model the cloud support is pay as you go. So, and the other advantages come in form of elasticity, so that you can expand or shrink your cluster as your needs change. So it avoids any risk which might be coming from under provisioning, and also can prevent the underutilization of resources. And cloud also provides benefits of virtualization to HPC community, such as alternative ways of flexibility, customization, security, migration, and resource control. So overall, cloud has the potential of being cost-effective and timely solution for some of the needs of HPC community. So then, why has cloud not been adopted so well by the HPC users? The reason being that clouds have traditionally been designed for business and web applications. And those demands are quite different from HPC. So cloud consists of mostly commodity hardware and commodity interconnect, whereas HPC applications typically need good interconnect for performance. And there are other challenges as well. So today's HPC is not cloud aware, and today's clouds are not quite HPC aware. As a result, only embarrassingly parallel or small scale HPC application currently run in clouds. So this picture gives an overview of the sort of research that we have been doing over here. And so with HPC in cloud, there are challenges or bottlenecks, and there are also some opportunities. So the challenges consist of poor network performance, which comprise of two factors. One is the actual physical network itself is not that good in case of clouds, which is commodity. And secondly, there is an additional overhead which comes with the virtualization. And there are other challenges, heterogeneity, multi-tenancy, and I'll talk more about that. But there are also some opportunities, as I talked, elasticity and pay-as-you-go model. So the main idea is to bridge the gap between HPC and clouds, and there could be two approaches. One is to bring clouds closer to HPC, and the other is to bring HPC closer to clouds. So in today's talk, I'm going to talk about cloud-aware HPC, and specifically I'm going to focus on cloud-aware HPC load balancers that we have developed as a part of this research. And this is to tackle two of the challenges, heterogeneity and multi-tenancy. And I'm going to talk why heterogeneity and multi-tenancy exist in cloud and why they are challenges for HPC. So the need for load balancer for HPC in cloud is heterogeneity and multi-tenancy are intrinsic in cloud. The reason being that heterogeneity is because what I mean by heterogeneity is mostly processor heterogeneity and hardware heterogeneity. This is because cloud economics is based on creating a cluster from existing pool of resources and then incrementally adding new resources. And in the process, homogeneity is lost. Similarly, multi-tenancy is also driven by cloud economics, because cloud providers run profitable business by improving utilization of underutilized resources. And for that, at the cluster level, they are serving large number of users, and more importantly, at the server level itself, by consolidating VMs of complementary natures, such as memory intensive and compute intensive on the same server. So multi-tenancy can be at different levels. And multi-tenancy and heterogeneity are challenges for HPC, specifically for the tightly coupled HPC applications, because even one slow process can slow down the entire application. So, for example, if you just have like one slow process or one source of interference out of 100, you still, as an example, if you have 70%, which is 70%, and compared to the 100%, so you still have 99.7% of raw compute power, but your application would be running only at 70% speed. So the research goals are, can we reduce the divide between HPC and cloud? And as I said, I will focus on HPC, making HPC cloud aware. And the hypothesis is that the heterogeneity and multi-tenancy, those challenges can be addressed by an adaptive runtime system. And specifically, we are focusing on the load balancing aspects. The primary challenge over here is that running in a virtualized environment makes it difficult to determine if and how much of the load imbalance is intrinsic to the application, or is it coming by extraneous factors such as interference from other virtual machines of other users. So to illustrate the need of load balancer, we conducted a simple experiment where we ran Stencil 2D, which is a 5-point Stencil benchmark. And we use 8 virtual machines. So in this figure, there are 5 subfigures, and in each subfigure, the figure on the left shows a projection timeline. Projection is a visualization tool. And on the figure right is the experimental setup. So, and the x-axis in the projection plots is the timeline. So it's basically giving the time taken by one iteration of this application. And this is a iterative application, so after every iteration there is a barrier, and then you can proceed to the next iteration. And the y-axis is the number of VMs over here. So in the first case, we have 2 nodes. Both of them are similar nodes, which I'm calling as fast. And so we get the projection timeline for that. But if we compare that to case B, where we have one fast node and one slow node, so the fast is basically 3 gigahertz, slow is 2.1 gigahertz. And so basically there is a lot of idle time on one of the nodes, which is the faster node. And for the case C, we have both the nodes are fast, but there is an so for the case C, here is the experimental setup. So there is 2 fast nodes, but on one of the nodes, on one of the cores, there is a VM from some other application. So our application's VMs are sharing one of the physical cores with some other VM. So this manifests itself to the elongated bars over here. These are application functions, but the projection timeline, since we are measuring from inside the VMs, it doesn't know whether this is coming from the application itself or it's from the extraneous factor. So it shows them, it cannot deduce the context which that actually happened. So it shows that as the application times, and which leads to the idle time on all the other VMs. So for these 2 cases, we are showing for the case when the physical CPU itself is not shared, but the physical node is shared between the VMs. So there are 3 VMs from this 8 VM parallel job, and there is 1 VM although it's mapped to a different physical core. But still there can be interference due to the shared cache in the shared memory controller subsystem. So these all sorts of interference and heterogeneity, they are pretty fairly random and unpredictable in cloud, and they can vary from execution to execution. So what we need is a mechanism to dynamically adapt to this sort of interference. So we use charm plus and load balancing, and Harshita already talked about much of it. So it's based on migratable objects and object-based over decomposition. So let's skip this. So the basic strategy we have is for the heterogeneity, the static heterogeneity we use, since we are running from inside the VMs, we do not quite know the exact CPU capabilities. So we have to estimate the CPU capabilities for each virtual CPU, and we use those estimates to drive the load balancing. So what we use is simple estimation strategy using a CPU intensive benchmark to know the relative CPU capabilities, and then use periodic refinement of load distribution. And for dynamic heterogeneity, which is coming from the interfering VMs, again we use periodic redistribution. So this figure shows the basic strategy, the scenario. So there are two physical hosts. So because of the background or the interfering VM, its capability is actually reduced to half. And without load balancer, we would have equal number of objects typically on both the hosts. But so with load balancing, we can actually migrate the objects from one node to other, one host to other. So the idea is to instrument the time spent on each task and predict the future load based on the execution time of recently completed iterations. This is again, as Harshita talked, it's based on the principle of persistence. And for the impact of interference, we instrument the load external to the application, and this is referred to as background load. So I'll talk how it's calculated. So the approach is that all processors should have load close to the average load. And how we calculate the average load is it depends on the task execution time, TIs, and the overhead OP. So one important point is that to get a processor independent measure of task load, we normalize the execution time to ticks by multiplying the CPU times by frequency of the processor on which that object ran. And this is basically the estimated frequency. So then average load becomes, we sum the load of all the objects multiplied by the frequency and also the overhead. And the overhead is the time which we think that the processor is not executing the tasks which are mapped on it, and also it's not in the idle mode. So TLB is the wall clock time between the two load balancing steps. TI is the time spent by objects on this processor, and the T-idle is the time where it was idle. So the idle time is actually fetched from the proc.stat file. So once we have this information, then we use this equation. So this equation is that this is the load of one processor, and this is the average load. So the load of any processor should not exceed the average load by a certain threshold. So after each user-defined time step or the load balancing step, we categorize each vCPU virtual CPU as overloaded or underloaded. This is done by calculating the load of that particular CPU and comparing it with the average load. And so we create a heap of overloaded processor and a set of underloaded processor, and then transfer, the main idea is to transfer the objects from overloaded to underloaded processors. So this algorithm I'm just going to skip. So to evaluate this load balancer, we set up a cloud using OpenStack. So OpenStack is a cloud management system which is fairly widely used by both industry and academia and cloud community. And we set up the cloud on an open Cirrus test bed. So OpenCirrus is basically a cloud testbed across multiple sites, which has been developed by a consortium of academia and industry. We use that at HP Lab site with, so this has 3 types of servers. The first 2 are pretty similar, so we tag them as fast, the other one is slow. So there is inherent heterogeneity in this case, and this is an example of practical cloud. So we use KVM as a virtualization environment. So so there are different network virtualization techniques which are available within the KVM itself. So we benchmarked them and we found that VIRT IONET was the best in terms of the low overhead. So we use virtual machines of type m1.small, and we pin the virtual cores to physical cores using vCPU pin command. So these choices are these choices do not affect the generality of our approach. So the benchmarks and application we used were Stencil 2D, Wave 2D, and Mol 3D. Stencil 2D, I already said, is the 5-point stencil. Wave 2D is the finite differencing to calculate pressure information. It's used for simulation of wave motion. And Mol 3D is the 3D molecular dynamics simulation. And these were written in Charm++. So to generate interference, we used sequential benchmark, NPBFT. It's just the choice of this benchmark is random. And the interfering VM was pinned to one of the cores that the VMs of our parallel runs were using. So to see the performance of load balancer, first we ran 32 virtual machines of Stencil 2D on heterogeneous hardware, and we applied interference by pinning one VM from which ran NPBFT, and we started that interference from 100 to 300 iterations. So, and these spikes are the load balancing steps. So in this case, we performed load balancing at every 20th step. And since we measured the time including in load balancing, including the time to make load balancing decisions and also the object migration times. So these spikes represent those. So at the 100th iteration, the red curve, which is without load balancing, this gets up because of the interference. The green curve also gets up, but after a few load balancing steps, it sort of settles down. And after 300 iterations, then this curve comes down, and this almost remains same because it had already reduced the impact of interference by most of them. And this difference is because of the heterogeneity awareness in the load balancer. Now, whether this is actually because of the load balance or not, we use projections CPU utilization tool, and this is again for Stencil 2D on 32 VMs. Here white is the idle time, and in this case we use fast processors only. So all the processors were 3.1 gigahertz, and there was one interfering VM. But still we see, so there are 3 clusters over here, one here, and this one. So this too is, both of them have same CPU frequency, same cache, but still there are 2 different types of processors. So this difference is coming because of that. And the third one is because there was an interfering VM which was sharing the same physical core. So after load balancing, this utilization increased from the average 60 to 82%. And part of this is again the communication time. So then we analyze the effect of different parameters on our load balancer. So in particular, we experiment with different grain sizes, problem size in load balancing period. So here we see that first we see the case without load balancing. We see that there is a trade-off with different grain size. If we have 2 smaller grain size, there is the execution time is larger because there is a parallel overhead of managing so many objects. If we have very small, very large grain size, then there are few objects in the system. And so basically there is a trade-off between the parallel overhead and the advantages which come from over decomposition, namely latency hiding by overlapping, computation and communication, and also the cache effects in this case because of the better fitting of these sort of tiles in cache. But with load balancing, there are additional factors which come into picture. One is the load balancing time, and the second is the load balancing quality, which I have represented by residual imbalance. So residual imbalance is max loaded or average loaded, and so lower is better for both time and this thing. So we see that as we decrease the grain size, we are having more and more objects. The load balancing quality is increasing. It's coming to 9% imbalance. But it's not necessarily the best in terms of execution time because of the other factors of parallel overhead and cache effect. So this is like 256 by 256 tile size is coming to be ideal in this case. Then we analyze the effect of load balancing period. So in this case, this run is for 500 iterations. So again, there is a sweet spot, because if we have a very small load balancing period, you are spending most of the time in load balancing too many migration, and also the quality of load balance is also not good. This is probably because it's not able to get good enough instrumentation data if we are doing load balance at very fine granularity. And if we are doing a load balance at very infrequently, then again it's not good, because then you won't be able to restore the load balance quickly enough if there is an interference comes. So around 20 iterations was good in this case, but again it would depend on the iteration compute time and these factors. Then to analyze the effect of problem size on our performance, so x-axis is the problem size, and this is 4 means 4K by 4K matrix. So as we increase the problem size, we are getting more and more benefit in this case. This is because the quality of load balance is improving, and also because as we are increasing the problem size, the computation to communication ratio would increase in this particular case because it stands in 2D. And because of that, any benefits that we achieve by load balance would show good benefits in terms of total execution time. So we then ran 3 different performance improvement by load balancing using 3 different applications. Stencil 2D, Wave 2D, and Mol 3D. And there are 3 different cases. One is where we just apply interference alone. Second is when there is heterogeneity alone. Third is heterogeneity and interference both. So we were able to get up to 45% benefit over in this case. The interesting thing is with heterogeneity, we get different amount of benefits for different applications. So we went into projection logs and saw that the load balancer itself was restoring the balance, but the difference is coming due to the different sensitivity of different applications to frequency. So because because Mol 3D was more sensitive to say a slower frequency processor, so when we are doing load balancing, then we are able to get more benefits in case of Mol 3D. And the other thing to note is the difference in benefits achieved with different number of VMs. This is because the trade-off between 2 factors. One is that when we are increasing the number of VMs, what we are doing is that, so in this case, so we only have one interfere VM, rest all are good. So when we are increasing the number of VMs, you have more number of good VMs to distribute the extra load to. So for that you expect the benefits to increase. But the other factor is also that as you are scaling up, since this is a case of strong scaling, the communication is starting to become more of a bottleneck. So even if you are doing, even if you are achieving good benefits for load balance, the overall benefits in the application execution time would be not that much. There's another salient feature, which is that although the benefit might be small, but since you are gaining across larger number of processors, So in terms of processors hours, the benefits are actually larger as you scale up. And so for cloud, the common mode of scaling is supposed to be weak scaling. So in that case, our approach would be useful. And these graphs are showing, so those previous graphs just showed like performance improvement, but whether we are actually gaining anything by running in parallel. So yes, we are. And so this is comparing with ideal scaling and also the homogeneous case. So our load balancer is bringing the no LB curves closer to the ideal case. So that's all about the evaluation. There is some related work which I have listed here. So there have been related work in studies on high performance computing in cloud. The main findings have been that cloud can potentially be cost effective for some application, not all. And the challenges remain insufficient network I/O performance, heterogeneity, and unpredictable interference. So bridging the gap between HPC and cloud, again I mentioned that there have been two sort of orthogonal approaches, bringing cloud closer to HPC. Examples are HPC optimized clouds such as Amazon Cluster Compute, which gives dedicated instances for HPC. And then there is DOE's Magellan Cloud. And then there is HPC aware cloud scheduler, our own work on HPC aware VM placements. And then the OpenStack community is also doing some work on architecture aware or HPC aware scheduler. And the other approach is HPC closer to cloud. There has been some work on topology aware deployment of virtual machines to physical machine and mapping the communication topology. So this actually, the research link over here actually mentioned research on cloud. So some of the lessons that we have learned in this research is that heterogeneity awareness can lead to significant improvement. And besides the static heterogeneity, multi-tenancy also introduces dynamic heterogeneity, which is random and unpredictable. And both these factors combined can lead to a poor performance of tightly coupled iterative HPC applications. One important point is that even without the accurate information of the nature and amount of heterogeneity, because it's hidden from the user as an artifact of virtualization, the approach of periodically measuring the idle time and migrating load away from time-shared VMs work well in practice. This is because the information is inaccurate because different VM technologies expose different timer semantics to user. So the CPU times which we are using for measuring the CPU timers which we are using to measure the object times, they may include the time which was spent in doing tasks from some other virtual machines. So, but in spite of that, if we do this refinement, after a few steps, it converges to give a good load balance. And so tuning the parallel application for efficient execution in cloud is non-trivial. This is true for even if we remove the cloud. So there are different factors whose optimal values depend on application characteristics, size, and scale. So runtime system which can automate the selection and dynamic adjustment of such decisions will be more and more useful in future, as we all know. So I think to conclude, we presented the load balancing technique for heterogeneity and interference, and we achieved up to 45% improvement. So the future work includes extending the load balancer in different ways. One is that data migration is performed only when we expect the gains. So combining it with sort of a meta balancer approach that Harshita has been working on. And then evaluating this on larger scale on an actual cloud if we have, or through simulated or emulated environment. And to use some different VM as time semantics. One of them is steal cycles, where they actually tell you that these many cycles were stolen from this particular VM by some other VMs. So this work was supported by HP Labs 2012 award, and I think that's all I have. So thank you. And any questions?
It's time for a question, I think.
So did you try this out on an actual, Amazon cloud? Or
Trying it out in Amazon Cloud was problem because we need to purchase those computers. That's the reason probably we didn't do that. So we have to purchase the computers. That's why.
Sanjay couldn't whip out his credit card?
Yeah. So since we had our own cluster where we could also tailor with different VM placements and see.
I understand. Yeah, for the research, but it'd be nice to sort of just.
Yeah.
Doesn't work in practice, but
Yeah.
Out in the jungle, say.
In one of your intro slides, you said that security was one of the advantages of cloud computing.
Yeah.
So maybe that in comparison to the kind of cybersecurity you have around an isolated cluster, like a large distribution class cluster. So can you compare?
So my point of view was that it's providing an alternative way of providing security. So if you have, because within the virtualization mechanism itself isolates your job from other users running applications. But as you say, if you are just using the dedicated nodes for your application, it's secure. But if you have a node which is shared by say 2 different jobs, then you can isolate them by using virtualization.
That's all. Let's thank Abhishek.